Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's 9 o'clock, it's a Friday, it's time for another video. Now, at 6 o'clock UK time, 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, the Infinity deck by myself and Lloyd Barnes has been released from all good Magic dealers. And honestly, it's been amazing to see how hyped and pumped the Magic community has been for the Infinity deck, especially as for the last 2 years we've been working on this. Both myself and Phil Smith and Lloyd Barnes have been working really hard to get this to the point where we're so excited with it. Now, on Tuesday, I actually put a Infinity Deck exposed video up. That will be linked right down there in description if you haven't seen it, where I kind of went through the deck, how it works, the things that you can do with it, the principles, because there's a lot, which is why it's called the Infinity Deck. But now that it's released, what we wanted to do as well is we wanted to give you guys a little bit more information, because both myself and Lloyd did a kind of exposure video and we talked about various different things that you can do with the deck, but we were literally just just covering a few of the different things that you can do. So we wanted to go more in depth. So this video is kind of like Craig and Lloyd uncensored. And it's an interview with myself and Lloyd talking all about the Infinity deck and covering any questions that people might answer or ask. So if you've seen either of the exposure videos that me and Lloyd did, this goes way more in depth and talks about everything. So if you're thinking about getting the Infinity deck, or if you've already ordered it and you're waiting for it to arrive, this is going to answer all of your questions. However, if you've got any other questions, leave them down below. I promise anybody who leaves a comment, I will reply to you as soon as I can. But if you've picked up the Infinity deck, thank you very much. If you haven't picked up the Infinity deck and you want to, thank you very much. And thank you for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it. And without further ado, this is Craig and Lloyd Uncensored. By the way, there will be bad language. You have been warned. So, hello everybody. Welcome back to Magic TV. I'm Craig, and I'm with the always awesome, very popular guy, because he's just hit 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. The one and only Lloyd Barnes. Man, congratulations on 100,000. That's amazing.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. It's very hard to be excited at this time of the day with no sleep. But how are you, man? Thank you.
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm really good. I'm amazing. And I think I need to point out to everybody why.
Just in general, you're amazing.
I'm amazing. Yeah, everybody knows it. I'm brilliant. But I think I need to point out why we're doing this video, and specifically why we're doing it on my channel. Why put this video on a channel that gets that's got 20,000 subscribers when we've got Lloyd Barnes in the house? He could very much go on his channel. It's because he probably won't want to get associated with what this is going to turn into. Because anytime me and Lloyd go onto a video camera together, as anybody who's listened to the Magic podcast will tell you, it goes south very quickly. Even when we were told to be good on the Murphy's live stream a couple of days ago, it ended up with me and Austin in a bath together. And oh my God, Bo Kramer was literally wanting to crawl into a hole and end the live show. Like, it just went south very quickly. So, you know,
that was purely because of you.
Yes, it was because of me. So the decision was made to put this on my channel, because my channel is just used to filth, disgusting content, and just you know, just no substance at all, while you go and watch Lloyd stuff to actually learn something. So that's why it's here. That's why it's here. But as this goes up at 9 o'clock on Friday, we're filming it on the Thursday, the day before. It's going up Friday, 9 o'clock. So by the time this has gone up, the Infinity deck, which you're wonderfully modeling right there in front of you, the Infinity deck, there it is, will be live and will be available to buy from every single Magic dealer around the world. All the good Magic dealers have it. All the shit Magic dealers have it. Everybody has it. They all have this. You know who you are. They know. I don't need to say. They know. But everyone's got the Infinity deck, and it's ready to roll. So we thought we'd do a little video. Basically, you did an exposure video on your channel and destroyed Kaylee, like destroyed her.
Oh, man, I was so nervous doing that.
Why?
Video. Well, because she doesn't get to see tricks unless it's like just jazzing with a deck type of stuff. that sort of magic she's seen, and she can't avoid it. But like when it's projects like we work on, we've been working on it for like 2 years,
Yeah.
and I specifically don't show her those, so I get an uncut reaction, like unfiltered, raw, real reaction. And yeah, I hadn't practiced the routine in full for like a week or so, and I was feeling a bit rusty. It was early in the morning. We were both kind of tired shooting, and I was like, it was the only opportunity we had to do it. And I was like, fuck, I've got one take. And if it goes like in my head, I was making it like more dramatic because it was like, oh shit, it's 2 years down the drain completely if it goes wrong. Um, but then, yeah, it went really well, and she loved it. But I was shitting myself if I'm being completely honest. Luckily, like like everything was self working and hands off for the most part. Well, pretty much entirely.
It was, yeah. But she
So I
loved
didn't have to
it.
worry
Like,
too much.
the performance was brilliant. You know, you sometimes walk around calling yourself not a performer, but that performance genuinely was just awesome.
I'm not.
I was watching it going, why was I the one getting the live performances when he can go and do that?
It's a lot, yeah, but everyone knows anyone can perform to their partners, their parents, spouse, friends. It's a different ballgame going to strangers, I think.
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it.
You don't enjoy it?
No. Magic's always been about creative for me. Like some people do Sudoku or painting. Like the creativity side of magic is why it's my hobby.
That's cool.
But your Matt test was amazing. Matt was freaking the fuck out.
Matt thinks he knows everything
So
now.
much fun.
You know, we've been through 2 seasons of the Matchmentary. He thinks he knows everything. He's a magic god at this point. And I just destroyed him because the thing with Matt is, although he's like getting a lot of flight time because he's performing more than most, and he's really exposed to magic, he's not seen a lot of stuff. Like, he doesn't even know what the Koran principle is. Like, he's never even heard of it. He doesn't know a lot of stuff. So he's got big, massive gaps in his kind of knowledge base. And I just destroyed him. Although, to be honest, you know, we'll talk about the Infinity deck in a minute, but there's a reason why the Koran deck has been such a popular dealer item for like the last God knows how many years. It's a fooling trick. If you've never seen it before, it destroys people.
Yeah, it's like one of those trick decks where everyone knows Svengali, Invisible, and Stripper decks, and then there's those like sort of fringe gimmick decks, like a cheap to cheap deck or a pop and popper Quran deck that you don't. Not all magicians necessarily know them. It's just kind of it's one of those things like you've either seen one or you haven't. It's not like it's written into the literature of magic in a sense, and you will often find that there's magicians that just get stomped by and they can be well read to an extent. They can, or they've had time in the game, and I think that's why the performing to people like Matt and Kaylee works so well, right? Just because they're both massive magic enthusiasts, and they both have some knowledge of magic, but not all the knowledge of magic. So when they get fooled, it feels like you fool them harder because they know what's kind of possible and what's not possible, and you can explain the parameters to them. Like, if to a layperson, a lot of stuff. If you were trying to explain why, like that dealing of the 4 piles, if you were trying to emphasize why that was specifically so fooling compared to another trick where you could have just forced a pop card of one of the piles, it wouldn't have resonated so strongly. But when you've got someone who's like half, well, Matt is semi-professional. He performs full time. Kaylee knows quite a lot. See, when you've got someone who's like half in, half out the door, and they understand the terminologies, and they can they don't get overwhelmed by a trick happening for the very first time they're ever. Lay people only usually see 1 or 2 magicians in their life. So when you've got someone who loves magic and understands like the risks and the rewards, so to speak, then I think that's why they react so much, because it blows their foundations out just up.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And it's kind of interesting, we can talk about this openly. We've both done exposure videos. We can talk about exactly what the Infinity deck is, and I want to kind of cover a few topics. But somebody said on a Facebook group, what was the original inspiration for it? And for me, what you see on the trailer, if you guys have seen the trailer, where at the beginning I'm calling Lloyd and I'm like, hey, I've got an idea for it. That is exactly what happened. And the reason it happened is because I started getting a
That was a
reputation.
dramatized thing, just so everyone knows, though. That wasn't the actual call. We just dramatized that to
Yeah.
recreate what
Yeah,
happened.
that wasn't the actual call, but we did recreate it. Yeah, and I was very excited when I called you just like that. But
Yeah.
but the reason it came about is I was getting a reputation for like taking classic decks and turning them around a bit. I'd just done the cheek to cheek deck, I think, the cheeky project, and before that I'd done the visible project with the 1914. And somebody asked in one of my Q&As on my channel, "Oh, what can you do with the Koran deck?" And I was like, "Oh, that's an interesting thought." And I looked at it and I was like, there's very little you can do with that. I mean, it's a thing in its own right. And I started to research into it. And pretty much everybody that approaches the Quran deck, they approach it from the point of view of, I'm going to change where the 4 outs are going to be at the end. So, you know, like you look at Knock 'em Dead by Peter Nardi, which is effectively a Quran deck. He very cleverly changed where the outs were on the back of the Joker, on the back of the card box, whatever it may be. So but nobody ever like tackled the actual Quran deck. And I was like, well, how could you change this? Well, what's the big issue? The big issue is you can't have it examined because there's duplicates in the deck. Well, how could that be fixed? And I sat there and I had snaps with me at the same time. And I was like, oh, hang on. Ooh. And then literally that's when I rang you and I was like, I've got the best idea. And then you Barnesified it. You know, you were like, oh, this is great, but we could do this and this and this and this and this. The whole homonym thing, which everybody is raving about, that's all yours. The any card at any number was pretty much a decision that we both made at the same time because we're obsessed with A.C.A.A.N. But like it's, you
And
know,
then we had like a 4 or 5 hour call, I think. And it was just like, we could do this routine, you could do that routine, you could do this, you could do that. The routines were pretty much structured, I'd say, all by you for the most part.
yeah, kind
I
of
put a
stuff.
few trick plots in, but the routine structure at least was, that was almost like watching a savant at work. It was really strange because I was like, oh, what if we did I can't even think of a routine off the top, like a two-way prediction using the one ahead principle. I think that's in there. And one deck being the moniker, one being this deck, and with one ahead. I think I said something like that. And then it was almost like it was pre-written in the stars, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the routine. I was like, yeah, that is exactly the routine. And then you did that for pretty much every single thing on there. It was quite a wild experience. But I think that's, you can see that you've done so many projects like this. You've got so much experience in it that now to you is probably second nature.
Yeah.
Where to me, I'm probably like, right, so where does the double lift in that routine start? Like, when do you use what color pen to write?
You know what made me laugh is on the Magic Cafe. Sorry, on the sorry, I gotta wash my hands in a second. But on the Magic Cafe,
Magic crappy.
there's a thread about the Infinity deck, and Phil Smith goes on there and goes, "This has been so long ago, I kind of almost forgot it, but I do remember having a conversation with Lloyd and Craig, and they were desperately trying to make me understand this thing, and I think I did. I don't think I understood it back then, and I'm still not sure I understand it completely now, because we were just like throwing stuff at Phil, and it was a lot of people don't realize this is the very first project that I worked on with Phil. This was before Cube 52. This is how long back this goes. This was before Cube 52.
Yeah.
This was before Evoke. This is before everything. This has been worked on longer than any of that stuff. This came before everything. And this is where I got to know Phil. People are like, oh, Craig and Phil work together all the time. How did that happen? It happened with this. I went to you and you were like, oh my God, this is amazing. Murphy's greenlit it. And then you introduced me to Phil. You were like, oh, Phil needs to design this deck. And that's where I met Phil for the first time.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was such a long time ago that we did this.
We
I know,
made spreadsheets for him and he was getting so confused. I remember you making a spreadsheet and it's like you were writing descriptions of each card because every single card in that deck was so well thought out. We thought about every card and every position.
Yeah, started off with the Korans, then we filled in the. We went from like the Koran, then we did the homonym cards, then we went for like the A.C.A.A.N and the other cards sort of thing, and then we had to spend time figuring out the stack order, So which way round they would go. And then we had to sort of, I think this is where you made a big leap forward with it, was figuring out like the core routine and then working the initial stack from 1 to 56 backwards into that core routine, so that once the deck got marked and numbered, like in stack order, you could just perform the core routine or separate the routines up just directly from the start. And then
that's a big thing, and I don't think that people realize that, but that's such a big thing. If you want to like sit down and do like a 20-minute performance, which you'll see on the project, there's a 20-minute performance of me doing a 20-minute set at the Magic Circle to some members of the Magic Circle that just get their mind blown. Very knowledgeable people like Roman Armstrong and Liam Ball, Bronwyn, really like very knowledgeable people. And I just literally took the deck and I did 20 minutes, and the one routine flows from the next. And that's how the deck's designed. It's designed so that when you finish one routine, you're immediately set up for the next routine. There's no transition. It's a little bit, I described it to someone, it's a little bit like Daryl's ring and rope routine. I remember learning Daryl's ring and rope routine, and one of the reasons I loved it so much is because there's like 7 phases. But at the end of the first phase, you have the props where they need to be to immediately go into the second phase. You don't have to like, right, I'll take the rope off this and now I'll put it's all ready. The end of the one phase is the beginning point of the next phase. And that's what you have with the core routine on the Infinity deck. The end of each individual section is exactly where you need to be to start the next section.
Yeah. That in fairness, when I was shooting it, the performance of Kaylee, I think I even say like, I think I said out loud, like, I'm nervous. And then I was like, I'm not nervous actually, because I remember thinking, oh, actually, it's all pretty much good to go.
Yeah.
Just what I need to do. I removed the first 2 tricks just to streamline the routine down. But essentially, I could almost just give her the deck in theory, just say go. Which makes it such a dream to perform. But all the tricks are like that, really. Like the hominem trick on its own, like the A.C.A.N stuff. You can just, if you compartmentalize them, what's called, in a modular sense, you can just perform it sort of without having to worry too much about, okay, this is now going to go in this order. And then if you get any cards, if you're going to use any of the tricks that require like 9 cards to be in order, like the hominem thing, if you can't work out just by looking at the faces, the numbers are on the back of the cards too.
Mm-hmm.
So you just literally put the numbers in order.
Yeah. And that is really just so smart. And I don't think I really talked about this on my video. And I know you didn't talk about it on yours, and we briefly touched on it on the live stream that we did with Murphy's. But one of the marks that are built into the deck, and there are several marks that are built into the deck, but one of them is that the stack number is right there, and you can see it from a mile off if you know what you're looking for.
Sure, camera close here.
Yeah.
So right in the center, it says 0-1.
Yeah.
If I change that card, you can see it says 0-2. And if I cut a bunch, you can see a difference. That says 20. It's reversed, but that's 22. 23, right in the dead center.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
23. And this is the right orientation.
24. Yeah.
24. And
I remember, my friend Nemid, who got a deck because
41.
41, yeah. Nemid had this deck like very early on because he was videoing a lot of the stuff for the project. And he looked at the deck and he rang me and he went, I can't even see any marks. Because when you're pointing them out like that, right, okay. But the way that Phil has designed the deck, it just looks like you can't see anything. It looks amazing. It just looks so good. And that's what I love about Phil's marking systems. He picks the right marking system for the right job. This did not need to be. Some people have compared this to Evoke. This is nothing like Evoke. It's a completely different beast in every way. Evoke, by its very nature, had to be full words. Multiple full words need to be marked on the back of the cards. With this, you need less information. And so the marking system that Phil has designed is perfect. But going back to those numbers, yes, it's great because let's say that you use the cards shuffled, which you can do, and we'll talk about that later on. And you can put them back into stack very easily. But one thing that this allows you to do, and our special guest that we'll talk about in a minute on the project actually make use of this principle, but you can do effectively what I think is one of the best uses of the memorized deck without actually having a mem deck. So one of the best uses of a mem deck, if you've ever seen somebody like Dynamo do it, because he does it an awful lot, is you bring the deck of cards out, you have someone cut a small packet of cards, you pretend like you're weighing them, but you're really like looking at the bottom card of that packet, so you know how many cards are there, and you'll go, okay, there's X amount of cards.
29.
Yeah, because normally you need to like this, but because of that stack number right in the middle of the cards, what you
Well,
can do.
that stack says 30 right there.
So that's the
So if that's the
30th
30th card, that's 29.
So you can get somebody to just cut a small packet of cards, put them into your
15.
hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 15.
Killer. Absolutely killer. That system right there is so strong. Like when I use the Infinity deck in the real world, I typically open one of two ways. The first way I open is that. I give the deck a bit of a false cut and I have them cut the cards and I weigh them, and I do that a couple of times because that gets insane reactions. Or
That actually does get. I should have performed that yesterday on my video, but people forget how powerful estimation and stuff like that is to a layperson. That's magicians because we're privy and savvy to it. We think it's a nothing burger, but lay people are like, what the fuck? How did you?
yeah,
It's crazy.
it's awesome. It really is. And as I say, I've seen people like Dynamo. I remember seeing Dynamo or Steven. I don't know what we call him now, but whatever we call him. I remember seeing him at a magic convention with a bunch of young magicians around him, and they were like, "Oh, do a trick," and he just busted out a mem deck and he just did that over and over again. And they're all, "Oh my god, how did you do it?" It normally is something that's only accessible if you've really got mastery of a mem deck, but with this, you can do it straight out the box. Straight out the box. Job done. Boom.
I think the important thing to remember is that like if you're going to do a trick like that, don't forget to like wrap it up in a mystery. Like add something to it. So don't. I mean, you can just simply go, and this is why this is so much fun and so this engages so much with the audience. If it was playing cards and you guess how many cards there are there, or you got the audience to guess whichever way you're going to do it, you can, and of course you can make it like more engaging to the person. But for example, with something like this, you could talk about right, and like this is not a great example, but this is just what I mean by like, wrapping it in a bit of a mystery. You could talk about something like, do you know that they say like just before you die, you see your whole life flash before your eyes, and you can count your years by the memories you remember. What I want you to do is cut some cards up, and we're going to create a memory or create a moment, something, whatever fits the script, right? So they cut it. I now know there's 21 cards here. You could say to them, what I want you to do is turn around, or I'll close my eyes, I'll go out the room. I want you to go through each image and try and think about it and attribute it to a memory. Okay, and as you think about these, try and create a story to go with these images and flick through that in your mind. And then the magician comes back into the room, you connect with them. I wouldn't put them back there. Connect with them and say filter through, and you sort of do some cold reading or whatever, and then you say, okay, so you picked up 21 cards. There's 21 memories to this. There's 21 images to your story, and there's 21 memories in your story, or something. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
not a great example. I'm just doing that off. That's not on the project, but it takes away from just the black and white analog of the method.
Exactly.
Yes. Because suddenly they're thinking, wow, how did he know I was thinking of the flower followed by the man with a cold? Like, what? And you know what I mean? Suddenly you're directing them. It's like Tommy Wonder, like hiding the method in the, in the shadows.
One thing I like to do with it is I like to combine it with the other marking system. So I actually pretend that I'm memorizing the deck. So I give the deck a quick full shuffle, a quick full mix, and I spread the deck on the table and I say, I'm going to memorize this deck in 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I put the deck on the table and I say, cut off a small amount of cards. And they cut off a small amount of cards and they openly look at the bottom card of the pack they cut off. And I go, oh, there's 12 cards there. And I deal it and they go, oh my God, that's amazing. And I go, yeah, let's see if we can take it one step further, cut deeper and put them there. So they put deeper. Now I look at the mark on the packet, and the other marks are going to tell me what the card is at the bottom of that packet, what the card is on the top of that packet. So I can then say, I can have them show me the indifferent card. So I can look at the bottom and I can go, oh, there's 22 cards there, which means that's the 23rd card. And if that's the 23rd card, I think that's a dog. and they believe that you've memorized this deck in like 5 seconds. That's not even on the project. That's just a thing that you can do with this deck. Like, not even using the core method. I mean, there's just so much you can do with it.
Yeah, and it's just, and I think like that, and that's the sort of difference between, like we were talking about this yesterday in the Murphy's live stream, is that something that every magician watching will have had happen to them. If anyone's ever performed a trick on someone, we can all remember that moment where, say, the person selects the card. So they select the card, they memorize it, gets lost into the deck, whatever's going to happen. The magician shuffle secretly controls it to the top, and they say to the spectator, for the very first time, name your card out loud. And the participant goes, it was a fade-ish, because they forget. Right?
Yeah.
People do, even, and we are guilty of it more than anyone. Magicians at a magic convention. If you ever show a magician a trick, or a magician shows you a trick, you get focused on them doing the pass perfectly, and they go, "So what was your card?" And you go, "I can't remember. I'm so sorry, dude." But and that's because cards are essentially arbitrary to a layperson. It's really hard to connect these numbers and sort of mysterious symbols to them. But if you have someone pick one of these cards and say, "Look, take this card, think about it, focus on it, maybe try and connect it to your life in some way." There we go, a purple flower. Now immediately, my mum loves purple flowers. She has a purple brooch that she wears. She always wears it on this navy coat. So immediately, I couldn't forget that. When it comes time to revealing that card later on, you'd say, "What? This card here is a yew tree." So if all I have to do is think of a yew tree, and I want to connect, I know there's a beautiful like oak tree down the road in this huge field that all the photographers in the area take photos of, I would start to picture that. So when it comes time to like revealing, okay, for the very first time, what was the image you were thinking of? It's been very hard for me to get that out of my head and forget it right in that, because it's like that champagne cork moment, right, where all the tension builds, and for the very first time, name your card, and it's nothing like the air just comes out of the room when someone goes, "I can't remember, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
And when you perform magic, that can really like make or break the atmosphere for the entire event, for the entire set that you're going to do. So even something as arbitrary as just changing the cards for images so people can't forget them can have a massive impact over your entire performance. And then if you have a bad performance, that can impact the rest of your night. And if you have a great performance, that can impact the rest of your night. The rest of the tables and the sets you do.
Absolutely, 100%. And you touch on something really important there. I on your video, somebody left a comment on there saying, "Oh, I'm not really into these decks of cards that aren't decks of cards that do something else." And that's cool. If you're not into that, that's absolutely fine. I'm telling you though, I perform a lot. Like, there's very few people that perform as often and as frequently as me to all types of audiences. And I don't use a pack of cards anywhere near as much as I used to. I go to events quite regularly now, and especially like teenagers and younger people, they don't even know what a deck of cards is. They've never picked one up. They've never used one. They've never done anything with one. You have someone go, "I'll think of a card." What's a card? Okay, so the suits. Okay, what are the suits? It becomes like a really difficult thing to actually get around. And even the people that do use cards, unless you're like doing something at a casino, a lot of the time, less people know playing cards. I now, not exclusively, but more than anything else, I'm performing with things like Evoke, like Cube 52, like the Infinity deck. And the reason I am is because it's just way more interesting. You have an image, like you say, people can connect personally to that image a lot better. And you can do anything with this deck that you would do with a normal deck of cards. Forget about the fact that it's in stack. Forget about the forcing systems. We can talk about that if you want to. Forget about that. If you just took that deck of cards and shuffled it and treated it as a normal deck of cards, it's a deck of 56 cards with different images on each and every card. You do an ambitious card and you have somebody take an image and it comes to the top of the deck, and you do an ambitious card, or you do a card to pocket, it becomes infinitely more interesting with an image. You don't need to have the card signed because it's obvious that that card is completely unique. You do twisting the aces and you say, "Look, I tell you what, I've got this deck of images. Take any 4 images out that you want." Okay, those 4. I'm going to show you something with these, and you do Divernance Twisting the Aces. It becomes far more interesting with images that they can relate to, that they've chosen out of a bank of images, than 4 playing cards with clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds on them. You do something like the last trick of Doc Daly. You do Jazz Aces. Heck, you know, we've got an ESP matchup routine on there, haven't we? Where you know, you give somebody 5 images. You say, yes, I'm going to do a picture of a person. I'm going to give you a picture of a dog. I'm going to give you a picture of a house. I'm going to give you a picture of a flower, and I'm going to give you a picture of this king. You're going to get 5 images that are very similar. So you're going to get a picture of a queen. You're going to get a picture of a house. It's a different house, and you do an ESP matchup. Well, that's an infinitely more interesting way of doing an ESP matchup then oh well, do you know, many years ago Dr. Reinhund invented this system. You've probably seen it on Ghostbusters. Oh, what, you mean the film that came out in the 1980s? That's how we're justifying these cards, by referencing a film from fucking 30 years ago. Are you fucking mental? How is that? It's just ridiculous. But you say to somebody, hey, let's use these images. Using images is far more interesting to do an ESP matchup style routine than using ESP symbols.
It really is. I'll say 2 things. One, this is primed for Sam the Bellhop routines. I think we do an impromptu one on the project.
I said to Matt, I got to tell you, I said to Matt on my video, I said, the thing you need to watch on the tutorial, skip everything else and go straight to the bit where Lloyd is explaining how to do an impromptu jazzed story deck with the infinity deck, because he does it several times. Most of the times don't make the cut, because within 20 seconds it degenerates into total filth.
But that's the thing, it's loads of fun, and I always forget how much people fucking love Sam the Bellhop. Like, yeah. I remember it being one of the most popular YouTube videos when YouTube first ever started. This Irish guy doing it at a bar. And then, like, you look at Justin Flom and other people who have done them, variations of them. They always get, like, millions of views and go viral. With a deck like this, it's primed for it. And like what we say is, you weave in a few lines. If you know the certain cards will get a laugh, you can just write your own script. Then you can literally just improv all the way through it, and then throw out a few funny lines that you know are always going to hit. And you've got yourself a routine, which is just crazy fun and entertaining. Like, it doesn't always have to be magical, you know what I mean? But it can be. Anyway, that was one thing. And we haven't spoken about that in any of the other, like, videos we've done or things. And it just came to me now as you were talking about engage with the audience, because yeah, that's one thing on there. But the other thing I was going to mention, which is something I talked about yesterday, which was about 20 years ago, I was a young skater kid. I wasn't a magician. I went to a wedding, and there was a really good close. It was the very first ever close-up magician I'd seen. So everyone thinks the first is the best. But he was, like, reflecting back upon it, like, now, he was a really, really, I don't know who he was, but I can recall the tricks he was doing. Because I'd still been doing magic for 11 years by that point, on and off. But I wasn't, like, a proper magician then. And anyway, but this guy was good. He knew his stuff, and he really knew crowd work. And there was a group of teenage girls, and he said, I'm a magician, or they came up. Either way, the conversation started, and the very first trick he did to them was the invisible deck. But he didn't do it with playing cards. It turns out Jake Keane discovered, I think, who it was. He did a version of the invisible deck where all the cards have images of different dog breeds on them. It's Chris Dugdale's Doggy Style, I think it's called. So he said to them,
well, Chris Dugdale's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible, right? And he said to these girls, hey, do you like dogs? And they're like, yeah, I love dogs. A group of teenage girls, who doesn't love, like, puppies and things. And he said, what's your favorite? Do you have a dog? What's your favorite dog? And someone said, like, Yorkshire Terrier. And he revealed it was the only dog breed face down. I'm like, Labrador, Golden Retriever, Havapoo, whatever they, spot dogs. I can't, my head's gone. Dalmatians. But the only card that's face down in my deck is this Yorkshire Terrier. And it was, like, one of the biggest ever reactions I've ever seen. Not just, like, for Invisible Deck, but you can imagine, group of teenage girls just absolutely freaking the fuck out. And I don't think that reaction would have been as strong if you just used a standard deck of cards. Because instantly they can differentiate. Whereas cards, sometimes, like you said, some people don't understand the workings of a deck of cards. We do. It's obvious to us. It's like it's as laughable as saying, "What, you don't know all the letters of the alphabet? Come on, how old are you?" But realistically, not everyone does understand like how impossible it is to have. Some people think there are multiple cards in the deck. They know there's two jokers. Is there two of every card? Some people just don't. But if you had a deck like this where they think of one specific card, they can see every card is different, and they can tell that just from spreading them. Unlike a deck, if you spread a deck of cards face down, you can't tell that every card's different just immediately by glance, but just by color alone. And
Yeah.
you can look and go, yeah, every
And
card's
that
different.
was done by design by Phil Smith. I mean, the amount of times that we sent Phil back and it was like, we were like, this is good, but tweak this. He must have got fed up of why he wanted to work with us with anything else ever again. I don't know. But it was really important for the systems that it was perfect. And what you're saying there was so important to us that they can literally see at a glance that every single card is just completely different from the other.
And it may seem like really arbitrary things, and especially like there's a bell curve magician for a magician's life, right? It starts off like you know nothing and you're in awe of everything. And then you get to a certain point, which is where I was stuck at for a while, where you think you know everything. And everything's a stupid thing. And that's when you start to comment on people, this is a stupid method, or you start to expose people's methods online, phishing for stuff, And then you realize as you go longer in magic that you know absolutely nothing. And then you are just like sort of a lamb to the slaughter. And then you become a mentalist. And then that's like the life cycle of a magician. And things like just the arbitrary stuff of understanding that lay people don't understand the normal workings of a deck. And that you do sometimes have to overprove that there really aren't two cards. And knowing that signing objects is just a magician thing. Like there's a whole trend of when you get to this point of the bell curve, everything's got to be a sign transposition. When you realize when you actually go through the motions, they don't give a fuck. It's a you thing, not a them thing. And this is like the stuff in the deck, which I love the most, is the little touches that for the people at this point of the bell curve seem stupid or obvious or maybe overkill. But really, they're the little touches that when someone goes to sleep before, goes home right before they go to sleep, they go, well, but every card was different. So he couldn't have known what it was going to be in advance. He didn't have two of them. Or, how could it have come to the top? How did he predict it? And things like that.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. Do we need to explain on this video about what the Koran system is could you explain it in 30 seconds, just so if people haven't seen our exposure? Could you give like a 1 minute, 2 minute overview of what you have inside the deck very quickly?
Yeah,
So
I'll tell you why I love it.
Yeah.
So just to explain the Koran principle, imagine it with a deck of cards, right? So imagine you have the same 4 cards repeating. Ace of spades, 2 of spades, 3 of spades, 4 of spades. And imagine they're repeating through a normal deck of cards like this in the cycle. Ace, 2, 3, 4, ace, 2, 3, 4, ace, 2, 3, 4, all spades, exactly the same cards. But in between each of those cards, there's an X card, a random card. So we go ace of spades, random card, 2 of spades, random card, 3 of spades, random card, 4 of spades, random card, then ace of spades, random card. So throughout 52 cards. It's a really powerful concept because there's just enough. There's more than, instead of it just being one card repeating, the 4 cards really helps break up that pattern. So the prime example of the Koran deck is that you can deal face up. And because they're seeing random cards and then over 3 repeating cards, they, on the whole, even astute audiences do not notice that they're seeing the same cards over and over again. And it means you can do a trick where you say, tell me whenever you want me to stop. So they stop. And let's say this happens to be one of the force cards, like a 3 of spades. You could say, look, you stop on this card for 3 of spades. If you went one more, it'd be a 10 of clubs, a 2 of spades. It'd be a 8 of diamonds. And so you get to have this really fair show, and you can deal face up and essentially force one of 4 cards, which you then reveal in any manner possible. Really, really brilliant concept and stand the test of time. Now, we have that built into here where the same 4 subject matters are repeating every other card. So there's house, flower, dog, and person. And then there's X cards in between each one. So house, random card, flower, random card, dog, random card, person, random card, house, random, and it repeats all the way through the deck. That is not why I love this so much. The key part of it is, if I was to take out in a regular Koran deck, if I was to get rid of all the X cards So now I just have ace, 2, 3, 4, ace, 2, 3, 4, ace, 2, 3, 4, ace, 2, 3, 4 spades. And I dealt those into 4 piles. So now there'd be I'm just going to split these up roughly even. There goes the infinity deck. If I were to do that now, I'd have all the ace of spades here, all the 2 of spades here, all the 3 of spades there, all the 4 of spades there. For a start, when they were in the deck, I would not be able to spread it on the table and show a good examination, because they would see, you definitely, with a Koran deck, you definitely notice there are multiple cards, because it's like 8 of the ace of spades, 8 of the 2 of spades. And you definitely couldn't deal them into piles like this and have the audience look, because they would just see aces of spades, all 2 of spades. With the Koran deck, though, because all the images of dogs, for example, would be in this pile, all the flowers in this pile, all the houses in this pile, all the people cards in this pile, because the subject is a dog, all the images of dogs are actually different. So there's one which is a white background and a Monopoly dog, another one which is like a dog running through a field, there's another one which is a teddy bear dog. So, like you in my video, I do to Katie, I'm like, pick up any pile and just check that every card's different. So because because you haven't told them what they're gonna do next, which is to think about the subject matter, they're gonna experience true statements. You say, pick up any pile and check that all the cards are different, and they do, because they'll see, or they'll just essentially see this, that all the cards are different, right? Which is 100% true. And then you say shuffle face down and think of one of those. Cut to anyway, and remember like the subject matter of one of those cards. So they see a dog and they remember it. You couldn't do that with the Koran deck like this, because if they pick up any pile and look at it, they go, oh, okay, that's the secret. And you could definitely not spread the cards beforehand and have them really look over with a fine-tooth comb and remember it. And it's those like 1 degree that take a trick from here to here. Couple that with the fact that if somebody did that, because that could be considered to an extent process heavy. Deal 4 piles, shuffle 1, remember them, and then shuffle them all together, right? That could be considered process heavy. Oh, the other cool thing is once they're all shuffled together with the infinity deck, you can spread them out on the table and they can see they're all different again.
Yep.
The other thing with that is, right, and I've learned this the hard way, when you do process heavy tricks, those are the types of tricks where people will forget their card. Yeah. Because they feel so much pressure not to drop the cards. They feel so much pressure to get things right as translate the instructions that you're giving them. They feel so much pressure with people watching them as well. And I know I'm gilding the lily a little bit here. I'm preaching to the choir, because most of you who definitely people watch Craig's channel are solid workers generally. But those process heavy tricks, that's where people start to forget playing cards. They start to think, oh, I don't know my card. That was 20 instructions ago, whatever. Someone thinks of a picture of a dog, relate that image to your life in some way. Well, I've got a dog called Charlie. I did have 2 dogs, 1 died. I'm not going to forget that. I mean, there's always the possibility someone can forget anything, but I'm much more likely to forget a king of spades or a queen of clubs, jack of diamonds, a 2 of clubs in the ether of all the process than I am if I look at a picture of a dog, okay, yeah, related to this, okay, my dog Charlie. I love my dog Charlie. When it comes to the end of the trick, I'm saying, so for the very first time, like, what are you thinking of? I'm going to say, I'm thinking of my dog Charlie. You know, and then he reveals, I predicted dog, whatever it's going to be. And it's for those types of reasons, which, again, when you're at that bell curve, sometimes you can lose track of the important stuff or think that it's overkill and that photo decks are useless because, you know, a lot of times magicians do magic for magicians. We know it's more impressive with a deck of cards to us. Like, we love doing A.C.A.Ns with a deck of cards, but the only place magic is real and it's indisputable because it's a feeling. When you experience magic, when you don't, that moment of when that buzzing sound appears in your head and the white noise disperses and you can't hear anything, you can't worry about your stresses, and you're just thinking that coin just vanished and landed over there somehow. That is the experience of magic, right? It's like if you deny magic being real, you also deny love and hate, right? Yeah. Everyone knows love exists. Everyone knows hate exists. It's just an emotion, right? And that's what it is. So to create magic, it has to be experienced. You can't just sit in your room and show people, and especially like showing magicians, like card tricks. Essentially, we experience magic less than anybody else, and it's kind of like that chasing the dragon. That first hit of heroin. People always say they want to try again and again, and they never get that same high. It's the same thing. It's why we're all addicts to magic.
Yeah.
But we're trying to be the dealers here. We're trying to be the people giving out that first dose. And if you are passionate about making people experience magic for real and giving them that same feeling of what you got when you got into magic, then why potentially, if you've got the option or you are interested in this, why potentially lower your chances of them having that fucking whoa moment by, I sometimes think it's confusing, right? When you say, well, what was your card? And they go, 2 of spades. And in that moment, you don't want them to be worrying if they got the right card in their memory or not. You want them to be fully confident they know what they're thinking of, so that when you give them that bang hit, there's no friction between it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
That's why visual magic is so strong for a lay audience, because they see it happen. They don't have to question if they've got the instructions correct. They don't have to question if they've got the right thing in their mind. They don't have to question if they read the word right in the book. They see the card go through the window. It happens. And this isn't that same like instant snap sort of fast pace. It's not necessarily fast paced routining, which you can do, but it's that 100. They have 100% confidence. They know what they've got to think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. Completely agree with you. And this was the thinking that went into the deck, and it's why. But the cool thing is, even if you don't want to use the Koran, I think it's worth noting that we go through so many different ways of setting this deck up and so many different ways of utilizing it, because no 2 people are going to use this the same way. You know, somebody said on my channel, wow, 15-minute performance. Well, yeah, it's a 15-minute performance because I chose to do 3 or 4 tricks. You could literally do my favorite performance. My favorite trick to do is literally an 8-ball production, 30 seconds, job done. I always open up with that, or with the other thing. Like the point is, somebody who's using this in a parlor show versus somebody who's using this in a formal close-up show versus somebody who's using this walk around versus somebody who's using this in sort of a banquet style situation versus somebody who's using this on stage, different people will want to have this deck set up in different ways. And one thing that I was very passionate about doing on the project, because I do work a lot, is I wanted to make sure that every single type of performer, from hobbyist to stage performer and all points in between, understands that this deck can be set up in so many different ways depending on what you want out of the deck. And I think that the nice thing about the Infinity deck, and the reason it's called Infinite, is I think that people are going to get this, and no 2 people are going to do the same thing. People are going to go, oh, my favorite trick is this. Well, my favorite trick is this. My favorite trick is this. And I think that different people are going to be approaching it in different ways, if you know what I mean. So you don't have to have it set up. You don't have to have it stacked at all. You can have, there's a different stack that we talk about. If it's in a walk around situation, that just immediately resets it every single time. If you're doing a formal parlor show, you have a different stack. If you want to have it in a shuffled state, you can do it. There's lots of different options. But me personally, I love finishing with the homonym reveal. I honestly have been doing magic for 30 years, and this was all you. It was your idea to do the homonym thing. I didn't even know what the word homonym meant, Lloyd. I just didn't know. I was like, why don't we include homonym cards?
You thought that was something Philip Schofield was?
Yeah, I was like, that's a great idea, dude. What's a homonym now? What we awesome. I'm still not too sure what homonym is, but I'm going with it. But you know, that was all you. And honestly, I've been doing magic for 30 years, and I can count on one hand, genuinely, the things that I do that are as strong as that reveal, especially when you put it at the end of a set. You've done a few things with this deck, and at the end, they've taken these cards, they've mixed them, they've shuffled them, they've put them into a completely random order, and then you have the 3 hits. They read the piece of paper, then they look at the box, which is just brilliant, the box thing. I don't know if you remember, but the way that that's built into the box, you said to Phil, I want this phrase put on the box. And he said, right, done it. And he sent us the graphic of the typeface. And you rang me up and you were like, he's forgotten to put it on the box. He hasn't put it on the box.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, how can he forget to put it on the box? And then he had to explain to us look, we were on a Zoom call, all three of us, and he was like, look at the first word of each line
First
at the back of the
word.
box. I believe I can influence what you choose. And we both at the same time we were like, what? We knew the phrase was on there somewhere and we couldn't find it. Like, it was just, so when you get them to read that box in a real world environment and they see that, and then you point out what the order of the cards are that they've mixed up, forget about it. You cannot go any further than that trick. You're done. That is so strong.
Thanks, man. I mean, when Kaylee was like, I know Kaylee, like I know sometimes like I'm working on a new trick. I'm like, oh, can you watch this? And she'll give me a good reaction because she knows I've been working hard on the trick and stuff. But when I seen her reacting to that, everyone can see it on the video. I was like, I actually had to cut like the video. So normally, like Haley's trying to get off the fuller to go and do whatever she's going to do, like pick up the baby from nursery or whatever. And I actually got cut that 10 minutes extra off because she just goes on about. I got it uncut if anyone wants to see it, but she goes on about that for an extra 10 more minutes. She's just like reeling over it, like I can't believe. And she obviously understands magic, and she knows that cards can be forced and false shuffled to an extent. But she was just like she said she actually last night then she came downstairs and she was like, do you know what? I got to talk about that trick again. It reminded me of Darren Brown's show because she loves Darren Brown. She it was the big reveal in the end of Something Wicked This Way Comes. To her, it was like a mini version of that, or like a close-up version of that, and she just kept. And normally, like once a trick's filmed and done, like that's it over. Very rarely will she just keep going on about it and how much she enjoyed it. And she's a magic enthusiast at the end of the day. So yeah, it was like it's one of those affirming moments.
Yeah,
you know,
it's so good. It really is. And we've not really touched on the A.C.A.A.N, but I mean, take you and me to put an A.C.A.A.N into a picture deck, but somebody said, does it have to be the King of Diamonds and 26? No, that's the beautiful thing about it. You can have like any suits. You can have Jack, you can have Ace, you can have 8, you can have King, you can have Queen, you can have 7. Most cards are covered. Yeah, Ace. Most cards are covered, and a lot of positions are covered with the system. And that's the nice thing about the Infinity deck. You can set it up however you want to. We set it up so it automatically does King of Diamonds and 26 because we're both mem deck users, and we like the idea of being able to have a mem deck with us and not have to worry about anything and just immediately get into that. But it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. No, well, you can have 8, 7, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, 8, 9. I can't remember. I think it's some more, and you can also then combine certain numbers or take some numbers away, or you could say, think of a random card from there. If there's any sort of number on it, go up by 1 or down by 1, or take them away from. So you can get creative with it, but you've got a good range of, at least for a fact, 7, 8, Jack, Queen, King, Ace. There's 5 values you can pick, and all 4 suits are there as well.
Yeah.
So that gives you at least 20 different cards in the deck that you can force in some way, shape, or form. And then there's numbers as well that you can make if you're going to do A.C.A.Ns. But just forcing particular cards. You can and like to be able to force 4 cards because you can force 1 value for each suit in different ways. So you can then do like a Chad Long shuffle lesson using this deck. You could have 4 piles on the table here. You say, look at the top. In each pile, try and make a playing card. In each, if you can, obviously they can because you're going to stack it that way. It doesn't have to be the whole deck. You can put some off to the side. You can get rid of the values that you don't want to force here. 4 piles. You say, look, pick up each pile. If you can make a playing card out of each pile, then so be it. Maybe you have 1 pile. There's no card they can make to give it a convincer. And then you reveal inside the box there's 3 playing cards that match exactly the cards they've made from a shuffled, borrowed deck, blah, 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 blah. And that's not even, that type of stuff's not in the project. But, you know what I mean? Like, that's what we call it Infinity Deck. Every time we talk about this, we come up with a few different new tricks.
Yeah, we've talked about 4 or 5 different things on this video that's not on the project. Like it's just it does really inspire creativity. It really does. And I love the use of the shuffleboard principle in that. It just really people will say we're not going to talk about shuffleboard now, but it's a very clever use of that principle.
In the A.C.A.A.N. Yeah, I got a shuffle lesson. You know, the Chad Long
Yeah,
shuffle
yeah,
lesson.
no,
About
shuffle
it.
lesson. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That's amazing. That's
Oh.
great. I love that idea.
Oh yeah, and yeah, the shuffleboard thing for the A.C.A.A.N. Or any. I mean, there's so many other things you can use it for as well, because you don't have to like. You can just look at the card and think like, okay, do I want to force man-made objects or organic objects? You can force trees, flowers, dogs, all face up from a triumph. You could do a triumph with this, just in general. You can do this. I mean, yeah, we're going over old war here.
It's just, you know, you can tell how excited we are about it. I want to address one question, which is going to allow us to bring up some exciting news about a special guest on the project that's not really been referenced. But before we talk about that special guest, one question that's come up a couple of times on the cafe, a couple of different places, and it's worth addressing is, can't you do all of the stuff that's on the Infinity deck with snaps?
No.
Which is no, I don't think anybody who's asked that, I don't think they've seen snaps or they understand the difference between the two, because snaps is amazing. I've done it for years. I mean, snaps is so good. But what
snaps is the best in the world at what it's designed for.
It does one thing, and it does it better than anything, which is it hides words
letters.
It hides letters and numbers and symbols inside images, and you're not going to see it until you want them to see it. If you saw Ryland's America's Got Talent audition, I used a similar principle with David Jonathan's permission with drawings. You know, it's incredible. But that's what it does. It does that brilliantly, and it's like an open index that you can take certain cards out depending on whatever. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. This is a totally different thing. There's no letters or numbers hidden inside the images or anything like that. At its core, this is a forcing system that is going to allow you to make killer predictions, whether that prediction involves a pocket diary, or whether that prediction involves just having somebody deal and stop anytime they want to, or one of my favorite things, which is you take 4 piles, 4 people shuffle the piles, they look through, they think of an image, they shuffle them, they put them away, and with no fishing and no memory work, you go, boom, dog, flower, house, person, and they freak out. There's a lot of forcing systems built into it, but then there's other things. We've talked about it, the homonym, the any card at any number. There's certain cards that are included in the deck specifically because we thought there'd be cool images to put in there. The 8-ball, I have mentioned, I do that all the time. I know where the 8-ball is, position number 21. So because of that, I know I can go up, force an 8-ball to an 8-ball production. We teach a couple of those. There's a light bulb in there so that you can do like a light bulb routine where the light bulb comes on a napkin. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do, and those cards have been included for those reasons. But it's absolutely no. The Infinity deck will not do what Snaps does, but Snaps can't do what the Infinity deck does. Do you know what I mean? It's two completely different things. I think it's worth addressing.
In a sense, and it's not direct, but like Snaps can't do what a Svengali deck does. No. And it can't do what a stripper deck does. And Snaps can't, and a stripper deck can't do what Snaps does. And a cheek-to-cheek deck can't do what Snaps does. The only thing they have in common is that there are pictures instead of playing cards. And that's where the similarities end. But yeah, I mean, Snaps is the reason this exists. Literally, as you said earlier, you were looking at Snaps and a Koran deck, and the fireworks went off in your head, and it's all thanks to the person who created Snaps, which is, I honestly don't know how Snaps could ever be topped in my lifetime in Magic. It's perfect in every way for what it's for what it was intended to do. Perfect. Yeah. It's very rare you get that. It's why it was the best trick of the year by a million miles.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I think Penguin's 14th best-selling trick of all time, since the company began. I mean, that tells you something, right?
So someone asked a question. I think they said on the cafe, but it might be someone else. How does David Jonathan feel about us putting this project out?
It's a great question.
You know?
Well,
do you want to tell him how he feels?
Yeah. So well, I'll tell you exactly how he feels. And here's the thing: my last few projects with Murphy's, I've wanted to include a special guest, somebody who's infinitely more knowledgeable and intelligent about the subject matter than I am. So with Evoke, I wanted to have really great mentalists on there that were awesome at emotional mentalism. People like Ian Rowland, people like Peter Nardi, people like Pete Turner, who I think if you had to collect 3 of the best mentalists on the planet, you put those 3 right there. With Cube 52, who else could you think of having on there other than Kev G and Colin Klaus? Like
Juggernauts.
They're juggernauts when it comes to magic with an ungimmick cube. Peter Nardi, incredible when it comes to mentalism applications. So when we did this, we had the whole project kind of where we wanted it to be. And I said to you, I know we're on there. It'd be great to have a special guest. And we both sat down for a couple of minutes and we said the same name. If you're going to have a picture deck and you need somebody on there and you want the best, literally the GOAT when it comes to anything to do with images on decks and picture decks, who do you have? You have David Jonathan.
David Jonathan.
And we both said the same name at the same time. We were both like, right, let's say it on 3. 1, 2, 3, David Jonathan. And I reached out to him, and David, being the nicest guy that he is, and if you've never met David, I consider David a friend. If you've never met him, I don't think this industry is, he's too good for this industry. Like, he's so nice. He will help anybody selflessly. He'll do anything for anyone. He's just incredible. He will literally drop anything and do anything that anybody wants them to do. And he's so creative. He's literally changed the game in this industry in so many different ways, over and over and over and over again. And I reached out to him and he said, yeah, I would love to be a part of this project. And he got the very first Infinity deck. He actually got the first packaged one up, and he's like, oh, the packaging is good. I was like, is it? I've not seen the packaging yet, David. I still haven't, by the way. And he's like, no, it's very good. And I was like, great. And just to put this into context, me and Lloyd have been working on this for 2 years and come up with some stonking routines. He had an Infinity deck for about a month and a half. At the same time, he was putting together the Black Mirror project, which I can't imagine how much time that took to put together the Black Mirror project. And he came up with almost an hour and a half worth of material and some concepts that I couldn't have even, like, he said, oh, you could do this. And I'm like, how would you do that? And he's like, oh, you just do this, 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 this. It works itself. I'm like, why did Lloyd not think of that? Like, the stuff he's put on here is incredible.
Oh, it's stupid. And David Jonathan is a living genius in magic.
He found a marking system that we didn't even know about. So, of course, I
don't know whether that makes him look like a genius or us look like idiots, but it's true. It's true.
Phil added a marking system into the deck that we didn't ask him to. We just thought it'd be a cool addition, which is actually a really cool addition. It's like really exciting, but we didn't know about it. And it was only when I spoke to David Jonathan, and he was like, oh yeah, I think I've spotted all the marks. There's this mark in the middle. And I was like, yeah. And there's this mark here. I was like, yeah. And there's the mark on the outside of the card. And I'm like, what? What does what now? And he was like, grab the deck, look at it. I was like, fucking hell.
I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah. So
just another thing.
Yeah. He's like,
so how does David Jonathan feel on the project? He's on it. He makes up for 20% of the tutorial. I think there's 4 hours of us, at least me, 4 hours of me and you specifically on there, and it's an hour and a quarter of David Jonathan. Brand new routines and ideas using this. So if you are a fan of snaps, then and specifically David Jonathan's work, and you were wondering how he felt about this, then I think we think you're gonna love it because he's on it.
Yeah, he really is, and he kills it. He absolutely kills it. Some of my favorite stuff on the project is stuff that he talks about and he explains. It's great. It's great. I'm so happy that David's on the project.
Yeah, thank you so much, David Jonathan. Again, just so humble that you even took the time to do this, and amazing. Thank you.
Now, is there anything else that you want to talk about? We've been rabbiting on for almost an hour and 40 minutes, and I know that around about this time you mentally check out. So before you start thinking about pizza, sheep, and snooker. Is there anything else that you...
It's way too early for kung fu.
Is there anything else that you would like to talk about, or are you?
I don't think so. The biggest thing is that, like, no, I don't think so. It was a strange rollout for this effect. It was all supposed to come out, and everyone was supposed to see everything today. However, you all got it a couple of days ago. Through a genuine, it seems like a genuine, complete accident. But a Magic Company accidentally uploaded the full product page and trailer to their site 4 days early. So this kind of all feels a bit backwards in my head, you know, because we explained the workings of the deck on both our channels, which was those videos were supposed to come out after the trailer. So they did. I mean, they did come out after the trailer, but that was also. But most people seen the explanations before the product pages and things. But anyway, doesn't matter. I really love this. Really believe in it. Super passionate about it. And you can see from the comments alone what people think. And if you want to get it, get it.
One question people have asked, and I think we could address this before we sign off. 2 questions, then we're done. Because those sheep aren't going.
God, it's turning into the fucking podcast again.
Those sheep aren't going to entertain themselves. So 2 questions, very, very quickly.
They're cold.
Number 1, why did we do exposure videos? You know, there's a couple of people on the cafe that said, "Oh, it's desperation to get sales," and "Oh, it's a marketing strategy."
Oh well, first of all, there are 2 types of there's exposure and then there's education videos. So exposure is taking somebody else's trick that's not theirs and revealing it. So that's where a lot of people who are caught up in the archaic versions of not wanting anyone to be able to learn magic online or be educated unless they're paying to do so. They think that, like, putting a paywall between learning, sleight or routine makes it morally more acceptable. Exposure is taking somebody's trick, and more specifically, like a product these days that's not theirs, they have nothing to do with it, and just revealing it for views. We created this. This is ours. And what we do is we're explaining to people sort of the gubbins of the deck. If you went to a magic shop, the man behind the counter or woman behind the counter, if they perform this to you, they would rightly do so, and it has been done the way since, you know, all magic shops have run. They would show to you, oh yeah, so basically what you're getting is a deck that is marked. It's got the Koran principle built into it. You can do X, Y, Z. We're not doing exposure, and we're not just teaching it all for free. That comes with the tutorial. What we're doing is we're giving you basically the dealer den. We're showing you what you would see in the real world. Yep. And there's 2 reasons for that, right? Sometimes people market an effect, and it's purely because the routine is fooling. And in those circumstances, you don't show them how it's done. Otherwise, it takes away the marketability. You know, I don't need to elaborate on that. And then there's some things which are a tool, a utility. And in those instances, you show people what the tool is and the utilities they can do with it, so they can make an honest, fair assumption about whether they want to spend their money on this. I've done this for years. I'll probably be caught wrong now because there's always somebody before you. But I was one of the very first people to endorse and push forward this idea of if somebody's buying like a tool or a utility, and it doesn't exist to just fool people, then show them what it is. So I remember some of my very first ever products that if it's something they couldn't make themselves at home, and it was a tool, teach them the workings. I would give out. I've done it with big magic companies. I've pushed really hard.
I've seen you do it over and over again in your career. I remember, with a different company, you released a gaff deck. And I remember you doing a really long video when it came out where you were basically just showing every single gaff card and what it did. Like just openly just showing.
Yeah. Well, even like things like Iris, which was like a slow motion bill through card. And a lot of people were fooled by it. They couldn't make it themselves at home. And so I wanted them to know what they were getting. And some people say, like some of the idiots out there say that it's to get more sales or it's to get views. And it's the opposite, because I know, like we had this discussion before I said why I think it was a good idea to let people in on this, because there are some people that will go in to buy this, that they'll purely because they're the type of people that were fooled by certain elements of the routine or the whole routine, and they impulse buy. And that makes up for a fairly sizable section of the magic market, right? So we know that to a certain extent, we've lost those sales. On the other hand, I'm so sick and tired of people marketing stuff and making up things in their ad copy, misleading their customers, or potentially trying to make something more fooling than it actually is. So they edit their trailers, they drop frames from it in certain procedures, so they can capture that market as well. I just don't think that's good. I just don't think that's good practice. I've never been one to do that. So I just think it's the most honest. The magic industry is so weird. People get so dependent on trying, like with the only industry that I can think of where we actively not try to not tell people about the product they're buying. Imagine you wanted to buy a new car and you went to the car dealership and they're like, well, we can't tell you how many wheels it's got. We don't know if you can't know if it's got petrol or diesel, and forget about wondering if it's got windscreen wipers. And you should feel ashamed of yourself for even asking about that and fishing for the answer. You know, it's like, dude, I want to know, am I going to be able to read the markings? Where the markings are placed? Do I need to use it in stack? What forcing principle is built into it? Can I use it in different languages? Those are questions that should be okay to be asked and answered and shown with clarity.
Yep.
You know, like we say, like when people buy like a levitating trick, they say it doesn't use threads, it doesn't use magnets, doesn't it? It's like we tell you everything that it's not. I can tell us what it is, we'll decide. And actually, it turns out I don't really like using fishing wire because I know that my stage show, the lights are too sharp. So they're gonna be reflective. If I'd known that before spending $300, I wouldn't have bought it.
Yep.
Just I don't know. I just feel like that's the reason for it. And I know there are people that are stuck in the Stone Age that completely disagree with it, and that's fine because opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one, haven't they?
Yep. Yep.
You taught me that.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's why I call you my opinion.
Love that. And we're going to wrap this. We're going to wrap this up now, but very quickly in the last 30 seconds, people have heard that there might be other stuff coming from you and me in the future. A couple of other things.
Multiple other things. Yes.
One thing that we've been promising for about 2 years, which is now a point that we're close to being ready.
They're about to be printed.
Yeah, they're about to. So
keep your eyes peeled.
If you like your Craig Petty and your Lloyd Barnes magic, keep your eyes peeled because
you like gaff decks, specifically gaff decks, not photo decks, then you might be interested in what's coming up. Maybe, I don't know.
Which is your favorite subject in the whole of magic, gaff decks?
Mm-hmm. It's why I got into like the product industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I fell in love with it. I remember seeing like the original gaff deck coming out. I remember seeing like Couchin and Garcia's gaff deck and just being in love.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes. Let's end it there.
We're going to end it there. We're very, very excited. It's available from all good magic dealers. Go and support your local magic dealer and go and pick it up. The price is incredibly cheap considering what you get. You know, when you're getting the fully printed deck. 6 odd hours of instruction. You'll love it. I guarantee you'll love it. Go pick it up and support your local magic shop. But I'll be back again very, very soon with another video on Magic TV. But please, more importantly, go and subscribe to Lloyd's channel. He's got over 100,000 subscribers. It's the cool thing to do in magic right now. If you're going to subscribe to one YouTube channel, subscribe to his because it's beautifully, beautifully, beautifully shot and edited. And you can see that I am sitting here in my kitchen with my radiator and a drying rack behind me. And he's in a beautiful custom studio, beautiful close-up pad in front of him, Thurston posters. That's the difference. I am the Poundland. He is the Waitrose. So that, you know, you pick what you want. But if you
I do say fuck a lot less though on my channel.
You do say fuck a lot, yeah. So if you want to see,
if you want to hear,
yeah, if you want to,
if you want to hear a magician say the word fuck, go to Craig's channel.
if you want to hear Lloyd, if you want to hear Lloyd fucking balls and all that sort of stuff, listen to the Magic Podcast. If you want to see Lloyd fuck, go and check out Pornhub.
Go to a field. Go to a field. The farmer's field. I got there before you did, mate. Just warming up for you.
He said. Anyway, we gotta go. He's got things to do. Those sheep aren't going to entertain themselves. So we will see you again very, very soon. Thanks for watching. I'm Craig. This is Lloyd. Go buy an Infinity deck. Bye.